Cameron Walsh never planned to make history. He worked as the main animal expert on the spaceship Horizon. His job was to study alien animals on new planets. The ship had landed on planet KX-732 3 days ago. This planet had purple plants and strange crystal formations. It circled 2 stars at the edge of the Orion arm of the galaxy. Cameron walked through the thick purple plants. He carried his tools and wore his protective suit. The air was breathable, but full of strange spores. The science team had set up a small base camp near a clear lake with water that sparkled like diamonds in the twin suns. "Dr. Walsh, you should come back to camp now," said Susan Miller through the radio. She was in charge of keeping everyone safe. "Our machines are picking up something big moving near the eastern hills." Cameron looked at his own scanner. Whatever was coming was huge, bigger than an elephant from Earth. Most animals they had found on this planet were small, no larger than a dog. "I need to see this," he told Susan. He crouched behind some glowing plants and waited. The mist parted, and Cameron saw the creature. It was amazing. It had 6 strong legs and a body covered in scales that changed colors like rainbows as it moved. Its long head had 3 pairs of eyes that glowed with a strange light. Small waves of energy moved across its skin. Cameron stayed very still. In his ear, Susan was almost shouting for him to run away, but something told him to stay. The beast stopped about 30 feet from him. It lowered its massive head. The middle pair of eyes locked onto Cameron's. Then something strange happened. Cameron felt something touch his mind. It was gentle, but clearly not human. The creature was talking to him without words. It was using thoughts. Above them, Cameron heard a strange humming sound. A ship appeared in the sky, its hiding system turning off as it came down toward them. The ship was not human. It had the smooth, curved shape that marked ships from the Galactic Council. The Council was a group of alien species that worked together. Humans had only joined 50 years ago after they figured out faster-than-light travel. They were one of the newest and least important members. 2 aliens came out of the ship. They were Zeitarians, tall beings with 4 arms and skin that moved like water. They wore official council uniforms. "Human, step away from the Nexus beast immediately," one said through a translation device. Its voice sounded shocked and afraid. "Nexus? Beast?" Cameron asked, not moving. "That creature is classified as the most dangerous being in known space," the Zeitarian said. "No one has ever survived mental contact with one. Your mind should be destroyed already." But Cameron felt fine. The creature, this Nexus beast, was still connected to his mind. It felt curious, not dangerous. "I feel fine," Cameron said. "It's just talking to me." The Zeitarians looked at each other with all 4 of their eyes wide open. This was clearly impossible to them. "We must report this to the High Council," the second Zeitarian said. "This has never happened before." Within hours, more council ships arrived. Scientists and security teams surrounded the area. They brought machines to scan Cameron's brain. They asked him endless questions. The Nexus beast stayed nearby, watching everything with its glowing eyes. Cameron learned that the Council had been watching this planet for hundreds of years. They kept it secret because of the Nexus beasts. According to their records, these creatures could destroy minds with a single thought. Anyone who made mental contact with them was supposed to die or go crazy. But Cameron was fine. More than fine. He felt like the creature had shared something amazing with him. Images of stars and planets he had never seen. Feelings of ancient wisdom. "What did it show you?" asked a council scientist. "It showed me stars," Cameron said, "and other worlds. I think it was trying to tell me where it came from." By evening, a message came from Earth. The Galactic Council had called an emergency meeting. The highest leaders of all member species would attend. This had not happened in over 50 years. "They want you there," Susan told Cameron. "They're sending a fast ship to take us to the council station." "Us?" Cameron asked. "Yes. You, me, Captain Rogers, and Ambassador Parker. This is big, Cameron. Really big." That night, Cameron sat outside his tent, looking up at the stars. The Nexus beast had settled nearby, its scales glowing softly in the darkness. The council guards watched nervously from a distance, weapons ready. "They're afraid of you," Cameron said out loud to the creature. "But you're not what they think, are you?" In his mind, he felt a warm response. Not words exactly, but a feeling of agreement. And something else. A sense of waiting. As if the creature had been waiting a very long time for someone like him. The next morning, Cameron boarded the council ship with the others. As they took off, he looked down at the Nexus, beast watching from below. Somehow he knew this was just the beginning. Humanity's place in the galaxy was about to change forever. As the ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, Cameron thought about the images the creature had shared. Stars being born, planets forming, and strange, powerful beings watching over it all. The Galactic Council had existed for thousands of years. They thought they knew everything important about the galaxy. They were about to learn how wrong they were. And a human who had never wanted to make history would be the one to teach them. The Galactic Council station was huge. It looked like a giant silver wheel floating in space. Hundreds of ships from different worlds were docked at it. The station was where leaders from all spacefaring species met to make rules for everyone. Cameron had never been to the council station before. Few humans had. As their ship docked, he looked out at the massive structure with wide eyes. "Remember to let me do the talking," said Ambassador Olivia Parker. She was in her 50s with short gray hair and a serious face. She had been representing Earth to the Council for 10 years. "The Council is not happy about this situation." "What will happen?" Cameron asked. "I don't know," Olivia said honestly. "This is new ground for everyone." Captain Rogers and Susan Miller walked behind them as they left the ship. A group of aliens waited for them. Most were Zytarians like the ones from the planet, but there were also 2 Kelvins who looked like tall blue humans with 4 eyes, and a Drex, whose body was like a large spider with a human-like upper body. "The High Council is waiting," said the lead Zytarian. "Follow us." They walked through long hallways with high ceilings. Aliens of many kinds moved around them. Some looked almost human, others were completely different, floating balls of gas, creatures made of crystal, beings that seemed to shift between solid and liquid. All of them stopped to stare at the humans as they passed. The council chamber was a huge, round room. Seats rose up in circles around a central area. Each seat held a representative from a different world. There were hundreds of them. In the center of the room stood a floating platform. The Zetarian guard directed the humans to stand on it. The platform rose slightly, making them visible to everyone. At the highest point in the room sat High Counselor Zixvoth. The High Counselor was a Zytarian, but older and larger than the others. The skin on its forearms rippled with changing colors, showing its mood. Right now, the colors were dark, showing worry or anger. "This emergency session of the Galactic Council is now open," Zixvoth said. Its voice was translated into sounds humans could understand. "We are here to discuss the human contact with a Nexus beast on planet KX-732. The room was completely quiet. For 20,000 cycles, Zixvoth continued. The Nexus beasts have been classified as the most dangerous beings in known space. Contact with them is strictly forbidden for the safety of all life. Ambassador Parker stepped forward. "With respect, High Counselor, Dr. Walsh has established meaningful contact with the creature. We believe this represents an opportunity, not a threat." A ripple of disagreement moved through the room. A representative of the Tartarian collective rose on its gravity platform. Tartarians were beings made of living rock and crystal. "The human should be quarantined and studied," the Tartarian said. "No normal mind can withstand the mental attack of a Nexus beast. His brain must be damaged in some way." Cameron stepped forward, even though Olivia had told him not to speak. "The creature wasn't attacking me," he said firmly. "It was curious. It shared images and feelings with me. There was no attack." "Impossible," declared a representative of the crystalline Voidborn Conclave. "Our records show 17 documented meetings with Nexus beasts across 12,000 years. All ended with the destruction of those who met them. Olivia produced a small device. We have Dr. Walsh's brain scans before and after the encounter. They show increased activity in parts of the brain used for empathy and communication, but no signs of damage or outside control. The council chamber filled with loud debate. Some representatives called for all humans to be isolated as possible security risks. Others demanded access to Cameron for their own studies. A few said they didn't believe he had met a real Nexus beast at all. High Counselor Zixvoth raised all four arms for quiet. The council has existed for over 50,000 years to keep peace among the stars. Never have we encountered a species that could communicate with a Nexus beast without harm. Zixvoth's four eyes focused on Cameron. Either humans have some special brain trait unknown to us, or these creatures have chosen your kind for reasons we do not understand. Neither possibility is comforting. A tall, thin alien with skin that glowed like moonlight stood up. There is another possibility, it said. What if we have misunderstood the Nexus beasts all this time? Angry shouts filled the room. The glowing alien waited for quiet before continuing. Our records of Nexus beast encounters are very old. In each case, the council species were trying to capture or study the creatures. Perhaps they were defending themselves, not attacking. Cameron felt hope rise in his chest. At least one council member was thinking the same way he was. Counselor Nix makes an interesting point, said Zixvoth. But it does not change the fact that we have a serious situation. If humans can communicate with Nexus beasts, does this make them valuable allies or dangerous security risks? The debate continued for hours. Cameron was asked many questions about his experience. What did the creature show him? How did the mental link feel? Did he feel any urge to do things he normally wouldn't do? Finally, Zixvoth called for a vote. We have three options before us. First, quarantine all humans until we understand this ability. Second, ban all human contact with Nexus beasts but take no other action. Third, allow controlled research into this connection under council supervision. The voting took several minutes. Lights flashed on the seats as each representative made their choice. When it was done, Zixvoth looked at the results with all four eyes blinking rapidly, a sign of surprise. Option 3 has won by a small margin, Zixvoth announced. The human Cameron Walsh will return to planet KX-732 under strict council supervision. He will attempt further communication with the Nexus beast under controlled conditions. As the session ended, Cameron found himself surrounded by curious alien diplomats, but his mind kept returning to the gentle presence he had felt on the planet, and the images of stars and ancient civilizations the creature had shared with him. The council might fear the Nexus beasts, but Cameron was increasingly sure they had completely misunderstood them, and he was determined to prove it. "When do we go back?" he asked Olivia. "Tomorrow," she said. "But be careful, Cameron. The council rarely changes its mind about anything. They've feared these creatures for thousands of years. If you're wrong about this, it could be very bad for Earth." Cameron nodded, but he wasn't worried. Somehow he knew that what waited for him on KX-732 was not a monster, but something far more important, perhaps the greatest discovery in the history of space exploration. The Galactic Council research station orbiting planet KX-732 was busy with activity. 3 weeks had passed since Cameron first met the Nexus beast. Despite strong objections from many council species, he had been allowed to return to the planet, under close watching. The station was much smaller than the main council station. It had been built quickly just to study the Nexus beast situation. Scientists from 12 different species worked there. Most still believed Cameron was in great danger. "Your body signs are normal, but your brainwaves show unusual patterns," said Dr. Nancy Ford, the human brain expert watching Cameron from the station. "Are you feeling strange in any way?" Cameron adjusted the special device the council engineers had made for him. It was a headband made of special metals designed to make telepathic communication stronger, while also protecting his mind. At least, that's what they told him it did. "I'm fine, Nancy." "She's getting closer," Cameron replied. Cameron had started calling the Nexus beast Aurora. The name came from the way her scales changed colors like the northern lights on Earth. The council scientists didn't like that he gave it a name. They kept saying the creatures weren't individuals but colony beings of pure energy, just using animal bodies as vessels. But each day with Aurora convinced Cameron they were wrong. She was very old, yes, and her mind worked in ways he couldn't fully understand. But she wasn't some mindless force of destruction. She was curious, smart, and somehow seemed lonely. Cameron stood in a small clearing surrounded by purple plants. The twin suns made beautiful patterns of light through the crystal formations nearby. His environment suit kept him comfortable despite the strange climate. A rustling sound came from the thick plants. Aurora emerged, her massive form moving with surprising grace. Her scales changed from deep blue to bright gold as she recognized Cameron. On the station, the watching team held their breath. "Hello again," Cameron said softly, lifting his hand. The connection between their minds had grown stronger with each meeting. At first, there had been only vague feelings and simple images. Now Cameron could sense distinct thoughts, though they were still alien and hard to understand completely. Today, Aurora seemed upset. Images flooded Cameron's mind. Stars dying, planets breaking apart, civilizations rising and falling. And through it all, her kind, the Nexus beasts, watching, alone, misunderstood. "She's trying to tell me something about her species," Cameron, sent to the station. "They're not predators, they're some kind of guardians." The council team, led by senior researcher Kult Shin of the bird-like Ardovian League, remained doubtful. "The creature is changing what you see, Dr. Walsh. This is something they do to confuse their prey." But Cameron wasn't listening to the council scientists anymore. Aurora had placed one large clawed foot on the ground in front of him. She was using it to draw shapes in the soil, precise math equations that matched no known galactic math system but followed clear logical patterns. "She's not just talking to me," Cameron said in wonder. "She's teaching." The team on the station watched in shock. Nothing in their records showed that Nexus beasts could or would do this. "Dr. Walsh, we need you to return to base now," said Clutchin. "This behavior is not documented. We need to analyze what's happening." "Not yet," Cameron replied. "We're making real progress here." But the council team was getting nervous. The station's cameras showed that 4 more Nexus beasts had appeared at the edge of the clearing. They weren't approaching, just watching. "This is unprecedented," said a Kelvin scientist. "They never gather in groups." As the twin suns began to set, Cameron made a decision. Despite the council's rules, despite the possible dangers, he removed the protective headband. The full force of Aurora's mind met his unfiltered thoughts for the first time. "Dr. Walsh, put the protection back on immediately," shouted Clutchin through the radio. But Cameron couldn't hear them anymore. His mind was filled with visions, the birth of stars, the slow dance of galaxies, the rise and fall of 1,000 civilizations. He saw the Nexus beasts as they once were, not as animals but as beings of pure thought and energy, watching over the young races of the galaxy like parents watching children. And he understood why they had chosen him. Humans were new to space. They hadn't yet decided what was possible and what wasn't. Their minds were still flexible. On the station, alarms were going off. Cameron's brain activity was off the charts. The council scientists were preparing an emergency team to go down and retrieve him by force if necessary. But Ambassador Parker stopped them. "Wait," she said. "Look at his vital signs." Despite the intense brain activity, Cameron's heart rate was normal. His breathing was steady. There were no signs of distress. "This isn't an attack," Olivia said. "This is communication. Down on the planet." Cameron stood perfectly still, his eyes open but seeing things far beyond the clearing. Aurora had moved closer, her massive head just inches from his. The other Nexus beasts had formed a circle around them. After what seemed like hours but was only minutes, Cameron blinked and looked around. The connection had ended, but he could still feel Aurora's presence at the edge of his mind. Not controlling, just there, like a friend standing nearby. "Cameron, can you hear me?" Nancy's voice came through his radio, full of worry. "I hear you," he said. His voice sounded strange to him, as if he hadn't used it in a long time. "I'm fine. Better than fine." "What happened?" Olivia asked. Cameron looked at Aurora, who had stepped back to give him space. Her scales were pulsing with patterns of light that seemed almost like writing. "She showed me the truth," Cameron said. "And now we need to tell the Council. Everything they believe about the Nexus Beast is wrong. Everything." "What do you mean?" Clutchin demanded. "The Nexus Beasts aren't dangerous predators," Cameron explained. "They're the last survivors of the first sentient species to evolve in our galaxy. They've been watching over all of us for billions of years." Silence followed his words. Even the most skeptical scientists couldn't ignore the fact that Cameron had survived direct mental contact with not one, but 5 Nexus Beasts. "We need to call another council meeting," Cameron said. "This changes everything we thought we knew about the galaxy." As night fell on KX-732, Cameron sat outside the research base, looking up at the stars. Aurora had returned to the forest with the others, but he could still feel her presence in his mind. Not invasive, just a gentle reminder that he wasn't alone. Tomorrow they would return to the main council station, and Cameron would try to convince the most powerful beings in the galaxy that everything they had believed for thousands of years was wrong. The emergency council session was the largest in recent memory. Representatives from all 478 member species crowded the great chamber. Many attended through hologram projections because there wasn't enough room for everyone. In the center stood Cameron Walsh, now with a full human team led by Admiral Gary Rivera of the Earth Space Command. Cameron looked different than before, thinner, with a distant look in his eyes that many found unsettling. High Counselor Zix Voth opened the meeting with unusual seriousness. "For the record, tell us what happened during your unprotected mental contact with the Nexus Beast." Cameron stepped forward. "What I'm about to share will go against much of what the Council believes about these beings, but I ask you to listen with an open mind." He took a deep breath. "The creatures you call Nexus Beast are the last survivors of the first thinking species to evolve in our galaxy." A wave of whispers ran through the assembly. "They evolved billions of years ago, when the galaxy was young. They reached levels of technology and mental power far beyond anything we know today. But they also saw the results of unchecked development. Entire star systems destroyed in wars, planets made unlivable." Cameron activated a display showing the math symbols Aurora had taught him. "This is their language, a perfect math expression of reality itself. Through it, Aurora showed me their history. The Nexus Beasts gave up physical technology, connecting their minds with the basic forces of the universe. They became guardians watching over the development of new thinking life." Representative Mexal interrupted. "If these creatures are good guardians, explain the cases where they destroyed those who contacted them." "Those weren't attacks," Cameron replied firmly. "They were defending themselves. The Nexus Beasts contain knowledge that could destabilize the galaxy if misused. When various species tried to capture or control them for this knowledge, the beasts protected themselves." Admiral Rivera stepped forward. "We've checked Dr. Walsh's information through separate study of the data he collected. We've also created a basic communication system that any species can use to safely interact with these beings." The council chamber erupted in debate. Some representatives accused humans of making up this story to get exclusive access to the beasts' knowledge. Others said humans had been mentally taken over. A smaller group, however, began questioning the Council's long-standing policies about Nexus Beast encounters. As the arguments continued, Cameron stood calmly in the center. Through his connection with Aurora, he had seen the vast history of the galaxy, cycles of civilization and destruction, of species reaching for the stars and then falling back into darkness. The Nexus Beasts had watched it all, carrying the memory of lost worlds and the hope for better futures. "There's something else," Cameron said, his voice cutting through the noise. "Aurora has asked permission to speak to the Council directly." The chamber fell into stunned silence. "She wants to come here," Cameron continued. To this station. To speak to all of us together. High Counselor Zixvoth's skin rippled in alarm. You want to bring one of these creatures onto the Council's main station? Impossible. Admiral Rivera smiled slightly. With respect, High Counselor, she's already on her way. Our ship is bringing her now. The news sent the Council into chaos. Security teams were called. Emergency plans were activated. Many representatives demanded that the human ship be stopped by force. But others were curious. For thousands of years, the galaxy's oldest thinking beings had kept to themselves. Now they were reaching out. And humanity, the newcomers to galactic society, had somehow become their chosen messengers. High Counselor Zixvoth finally restored order. This is unprecedented. In 50,000 years, no Nexus beast has ever willingly approached a Council facility. Because you never gave them a reason to, Cameron said. You tried to capture and study them. You never just tried to talk to them. Counselor Nix, the glowing alien who had supported Cameron before, spoke up. I vote we allow this meeting. If Dr. Walsh is right, this could be the most important moment in Council history. If he is wrong. The counselor's glow dimmed slightly. Then we will deal with the consequences. A vote was called. It was close, but in the end, curiosity won. Over fear, the Nexus beast would be allowed to enter the station under strict security measures. As the Council prepared, Cameron stood with Admiral Rivera near the main docking bay. Through their view screen, they could see the human transport ship approaching. Aurora was inside a special chamber designed for her comfort. You understand what this means for humanity's position in the Council? Rivera said quietly. Cameron nodded. Aurora understands too. That's part of why she chose us. The political implications were huge. As the newest members of the Council, humans had little power or respect. Most older species saw them as primitive newcomers. But now, humans were the only ones who could talk to the galaxy's oldest and most powerful beings. Everything would change. The ship docked, and Cameron felt Aurora's mind touch his again. She was nervous but determined. This would be the first time in billions of years that her kind had openly shared their knowledge with the younger races. Are you ready? Cameron asked her mentally. The answer came not in words, but in feelings. Resolve, hope, and something like affection. Aurora had grown fond of Cameron just as he had of her. Their minds had become connected in ways neither fully understood. The security teams took positions. The Council representatives gathered in the observatory dome, the only space large enough to hold Aurora comfortably. Cameron walked to the airlock ready to greet his friend and guide her to the meeting that would change galactic history forever. Behind him, Admiral Rivera watched with pride. Humans had been exploring space for just over 100 years. They were babies compared to most Council species. Yet they had done what no one else could. They had made friends with the beings everyone else feared. As the airlock began to cycle open, Cameron felt a mix of emotions. Excitement, worry, hope. But most of all, he felt sure that this was right. The galaxy had been divided for too long. It was time for the oldest and the youngest to work together. The inner doors of the airlock started to part. Soon the Galactic Council would see a Nexus beast not as a monster to fear, but as Aurora, an ancient, wise being with much to teach them all. And humanity's greatest strength would prove to be not technology or military power, but simply the willingness to reach out a hand in friendship to the unknown. The great observatory dome of the Council station had been quickly changed for the historic meeting. Its clear ceiling showed a beautiful view of the galaxy's spiral arm. Stars looked like diamonds against the black of space. Representatives from every Council species sat in the tiered seats with security teams standing nervously at every door. In the center, a large open area had been cleared. It was surrounded by the most advanced safety systems available, though Cameron had said they weren't needed. Admiral Rivera stood beside Cameron, watching as the massive airlock doors began to open. You understand what this means for humanity's place in the Council, he said quietly. Cameron nodded. Aurora understands too. That's part of why she chose us. The inner doors of the airlock opened, revealing Aurora in all her glory. She looked even larger than she had on the planet. Her scales shifted through colors that most beings couldn't even see. The waves of energy around her form made dancing patterns of light across the dome ceiling. Several representatives moved back to higher seats. Others leaned forward with interest. High Counselor Zix Voth stayed in place, all forearms stiff in what Cameron had learned was a sign of extreme stress. Aurora moved with surprising grace for a creature her size. Each step was careful and planned. She stopped in the center of the chamber, her 3 sets of eyes slowly looking at all the gathered representatives. Cameron stepped forward, placing his hand gently on Aurora's front leg. The connection between them opened right away, and he turned to address the council. Aurora wishes to speak to you all. With your permission, I'll be her voice. High Counselor Zix Voth gave a short nod, unable to find words. Cameron closed his eyes, letting Aurora's thoughts flow through him. When he spoke again, his voice sounded deeper, older, yet somehow still his own. We have watched this council since it began, he started. We have seen your wars and your peace treaties, your technology growth and your moral debates. We have stayed apart, not because we looked down on you, but out of hope. Hope that you would find your own path without the weight of our ancient knowledge. The chamber was completely silent. But the galaxy faces dangers now that threaten all life. Dangers we have seen destroy civilizations before. The collision of galaxy clusters, the waking of sleeping black holes, the spread of void energy across dimensional walls. Images appeared in the minds of all present, terrible visions of huge disasters that few had even thought possible. We can no longer just watch. We offer our knowledge not as a gift, but as a shared duty. The humans have shown they can talk to us without trying to control or use us. They will help us bridge the gap between your understanding and ours. High Counselor Zix Voth finally found their voice. Why now? Why humans? They are among the youngest species in the council. Cameron felt Aurora's amusement through their link. Perhaps that is exactly why, he translated. They have not yet decided what is impossible. Their minds remain open. In the days that followed, the council passed the historic Nexus Accords, creating formal relations with the beings they had feared for thousands of years. A new part of the council was formed, the Department of Ancient Knowledge, with Cameron Walsh named as its first director. Across the galaxy, other Nexus beasts began to come out of hiding, looking for human partners who could help them talk with the wider galactic community. Earth, once a small world with little political importance, became the center of a new era of cooperation between species. 5 years later, Cameron stood on the viewing deck of the newly built Harmony Station, watching as humans and various alien species worked alongside a dozen Nexus beasts. They were mapping the quantum changes that threatened galactic stability. Admiral Rivera, now Ambassador Rivera, joined him at the window. "Did you ever think it would turn out like this?" he asked. Cameron smiled, feeling Aurora's familiar presence at the edge of his mind, no longer overwhelming but a comfortable companion. "No," he admitted. "But then, imagination is what got us here in the first place. The ability to look at the most powerful force in the galaxy and see not a beast to be feared, but a friend waiting to be understood." Outside the window, the stars continued their eternal dance, watching a new chapter in galactic history, one where humanity's greatest strength proved not to be technology or military power, but the simple willingness to reach out a hand in friendship to the unknown. The Nexus beasts had waited billions of years for a species that would not try to use them or fear them, but simply talk to them. In humans, they had finally found what they were looking for. And humans, in return, had found not just powerful allies but teachers who could guide them through the dangers that lay ahead. Other council species had begun to learn from humanity's example. The Zeitarians, once so afraid of the Nexus beasts, now had their own communication programs. Even the Tartarians, who had wanted Cameron quarantined, were working with a Nexus beast to improve their crystal technology. The galaxy was changing. Old fears were being replaced by new understanding. Old enemies were becoming new friends. And at the center of it all was one simple truth, that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe is not technology or weapons or even knowledge, but the courage to reach out and say hello to something different. Cameron watched as a young human scientist worked with a Nexus beast to map the movements of dark energy through the galaxy. The Nexus beast created complex patterns of light with its scales, which the scientist recorded with special equipment. "We still have so much to learn," Cameron said softly. Ambassador Rivera nodded. "But now we have time to learn it. Thanks to you." Cameron shook his head. "Not just me. All of us. Humans, Nexus beasts, the Council. We all took a chance on something new." As he turned to leave the observation deck, Cameron felt Aurora's presence grow stronger in his mind. She shared an image with him, a vision of the future, where countless species worked together to face challenges no single civilization could overcome alone. It was a good future. A future worth working for. And it had all started because one human had stayed still when others would have run, had listened when others would have feared, had reached out a hand in friendship when others would have reached for a weapon. Sometimes, the greatest adventures begin not with a show of strength, but with a simple act of kindness. And sometimes the most dangerous beast in the galaxy turns out not to be a beast at all, but a friend you just haven't met yet.